All right. I had scheduled to do another stream on Yamcha because I really didn't like the other one. It was very rushed, which had a lot to do with some family manners matters that came family manners. We're already screwing this up. Some relative manners that came to not really to dominate basically the entire day. Also, it's raining outside, so that's why you can hear that little drizzle that's coming down. But yeah, let me make this little edit and then we can start it. Ah. And also, someone told me that my grunts were a fan favorite, so I'm gonna make sure I make more of those because those are always very helpful. I've been told that when people hear them, their day just brightens up. The sun starts shining and they smile and do all the rest of the little acts that would be considered positive. What the hell? Oh, I hate spell check. I typed in the name and then it got it. You type something correctly and then spell check tries to pretend it's smarter than you are. 1 second. Okay, almost there. And there we go. All right. So when I did the stream this past, what was that, Sunday? I was referring to the fact that Yamcha was the only fighter from the original series, so from Dragon Ball, that really didn't get much to do in the way of impressive activities or feats or whatever term you could use. Like you had Roshi win the first tournament, then Tien won the second one. And even though Krillin didn't win any of the three tournaments that were in the original series, he still, was getting in like runner up and third place. And it was still, the idea is if it was only for that one or maybe two people, he could make it. But with Yamcha, they embarrassed him fighting Master Roshi in disguise the first time. They had him get, used to basically show that Tien was a big threat by having him break his leg. And then because of that, he doesn't even get to participate in the following arc other than sit at Roshi's house. And then after 3 years of training, the only thing he gets to do when he actually fights someone that matters is lose to what we later found out was Kami. Again, to show how strong Kami is and to, again, display the gaps in power between him and the other characters. But you can review the record of pretty much every other character that was considered a fighter in the original series, and none of them have as embarrassing of a performance as Yamcha. I would say the only arc where he really contributes significantly is maybe the first arc, because he was a threat to Goku when they first met, which is a running theme with a lot of his rivals, that after the first meeting, they just peter off really, really quickly. And then the first tournament. So the first arc in the first tournament, that's about the full extent of his character really, I don't want to say doing stuff that matters, but being considered a main character. Because like his whole thing when he gets to actually fight just seems to be the person that people use to measure the new strength of an opponent. That's why he was the only one that lost to a Cyberman. That's why he's the one that gets his chest blown by Android 20. They really do him pretty horribly. You would think that Toriyama hates him. We actually do know that Toriyama hates Goku's wife, which is really kind of comedic. The fact that the creator of the series would hate the main character's wife when he's the person who chose for them to get together in the first place. And Toriyama and these humans, he just, you would think he hates humans or something, like his actual own species in real life. He's just, maybe that's like a meta example that he actually does despise humans. And so when he writes Dragon Ball, he makes them just either really weak or, in the case of, some of the chicks, annoying. That would be really funny if we found that was the case. But yeah, I was gonna say that they really wasted his character because a lot of people will say, "Oh, Z is when all the humans stopped being relevant," but with Yamcha, it starts a lot earlier. And again, it's because they use him to prop up other people. Because we really before the Jackie Chun fight didn't see Roshi fight all out against anybody. So they use him to make him look stronger. They use him to make Tien look stronger. And what sucks about the embarrassment he had by Tien is that because the King Piccolo arc takes place directly after that, he's forced by the narrative of the story to not be able to contribute. And hell, I would even say that despite the fact that they were dead for what is it, half of the arc, Shiatsu and Roshi did more in that arc than Yamcha because at least they got to go with Tien to get some of the Dragon Balls and had like a little subplot at the start of it, whereas Yamcha just sits around at the house. I think his only fight that whole arc was battling Tambourine, which theoretically would have ended with his death if King Piccolo hadn't have ordered for him to go and figure out who had killed his son, which was Yajirobe. And I remember someone had said that the reason that they like Yajirobe is because he's why Goku didn't go crazy after Krillin got killed. They could have given that role to Yamcha. They could have had Goku go to Korin, get the Senzu Bean, give it to Yamcha, and then he could have been with him and been his, I guess, supposed friend that rehabilitates him or makes sure he doesn't lose his mind during his great traumatic experience. But a thing that happens a lot of times with fans of works, especially if it's like a comic or some show or just something that is continuous, is when they're trying to defend the structure of the story and missed opportunities. They try to pretend like someone didn't write that, which is one of the reasons why you'll have people who will push back on the suggestion that they could have used Yamcha in place of Yajirobe. Well, Yamcha wasn't as strong as Yajirobe. Again, uh, in that same arc, we literally had Goku get stronger by drinking some water. So it's not the biggest stretch of the imagination that Toriyama could have created a reason for Yamcha to be stronger without him having to excessively train. Just saying. Yeah, he gets pretty much nothing. I'd say no real time to shine at all. Like after the first two arcs of the series, which is what makes the last two chapters of Super all the more aggravating. But we'll get into that later. I mentioned this during one of the other streams I did. I think it was one from yesterday. I was talking about how very early in Dragon Ball Z, so when Raditz comes to Earth, and Goku's got the what 200 power level, some really itty bitty power level back when those actually mattered, and he fires off the Kamehameha, and Raditz notices that the attack is stronger than he is, and he gets all freaked out. And obviously, Special Beam Cannon is stronger than Raditz was, so that's another move that was created on Earth, granted by Piccolo, but still created on Earth that was stronger than the person who's using it. Very early in Z, it is established that Earthlings have this special thing where they can create moves that are infinitely or just to some large degree stronger than the person who uses the move. And this kind of still is around a little bit because the Kienzan is stronger than Krillin because it could have cut Frieza in half. Tien's using the Keaton Koho against Cell and actually managing to keep him back. So it does, to an extent, still play later on, but that was really the only chance Yamcha had to be a character that actually did anything and not have fans lose their minds and whatnot. And that's why the Nappa fight gets all the more aggravating, because when you realize that the only reason any of the humans were even allowed to participate in the Saiyan arc was to basically, with the exception of maybe Piccolo's death, which again sets the narrative for the following arc, everyone's there to just buy time and be fodder and show off how impressive the Saiyans are. And it sucks because they use Yamcha to show how strong the Cybermen are, because they don't want to give you the impression that they're like the stormtroopers or any other generic robot, just thing you can think of where it's like a group of minions. They all, because there's this perception that they're ineffective, weak, just went across all forms of media. So they use him to show how strong they are and to give Krillin the moment to be cool when he destroys the rest of the Cybermen, except for, what was that? I think one of them, yeah, because Piccolo killed one when it came out and attacked Gohan. Uh, you know, so that's the beginning of his horrible role in Z. And then you get to the Freeze arc where he's barely in that. Really, they don't even try to use him at all until the Goku versus Frieza fight, where they have him reacting a little bit. And then with Cell, he probably, I would say, out of any fighter character, that like any of the fighters that participated in Z, so like not counting Roshi and I guess technically Shatsu as well, because he was only there for that first fight, literally has the worst role out of anybody. Like you have him get used to show how impressive Android 20 is, which becomes even more ironic when you consider how unimpressive he turned out to be because of Toriyama's editor saying we don't want to have these, this old man and this China doll, referring to 20 and 19 as the main villain. So he created 18 and 17, and he created Cell. People have discussed this before, but it was really comedic that they use him, like, just in hindsight, it's funnier because they use him to prop up a villain who they end up discarding very quickly per the request of the editor. And then when Goku needs some person to take him back to get healed, they decide to have him go with him. And then, basically, because even though I always say that I think Tien doesn't really do anything in Z other than stop Cell, they still have him around. Like, he still gets to hang out with Piccolo a bit and, sort of participate in that kind of capacity. The only real fight Yamcha gets that whole arc is with the Cell Jr., which again makes him the character that out of the current Z fighters got the least to do in that arc. God, it is really bad. And it sucks too, because they could have had him use the Spirit Ball or the Wolfang Fist to take out the Cell Jr. Because, like, that's why I said they always make it to where they need the rest of the, like, if you're not the established designated hero, whether that's Goku or in very few instances Gohan, they always take the rest of the cast and basically make them into just these living props to show off how strong the new villain is. So instead of having him beat up one of the Cell Juniors who is supposed to be nowhere near as strong as Cell himself, no, we got to make him lose. We got to make it to where we can't even just have like a fight where he's able to keep up, as in, kind of like be tied evenly. No, we got to make sure he gets decimated so Gohan will look even cooler when he transforms. That's the story of the Z fighters. Everybody gets smashed so one person can look cool. And if you read the last chapter of Super, you know where we're heading with that one. But it's kind of funny because I thought, like with Frieza, right? Yamcha's dead for most of that arc. But I would rather a character be deceased and not, well, again, Mark, no one is trying to question that. I'd rather a character be deceased and not have to put up with just getting embarrassed. My monster drink. Yeah, you guys come in, you just dominate the conversation. I'm over here making a point, and then it just gets completely derailed. But I'd rather him not be in the story than to be in the story and not do anything besides get beat up to show how strong some villain is. I'm planning on doing another stream probably on Sunday about either Krillin or Piccolo, and I was going to make the point that for as awful as they treat the characters that aren't Saiyans, they still do give Krillin a little bit of respect. Like, he'll still get a fighter here and there. Still get to do some stuff that's not just show off how strong the new villain is. and they don't really give that to Yamcha. Like with the Buu arc, he doesn't even get to fight anyone except, I guess, technically Super Buu, where he just gets turned into chocolate and killed with everybody else. My God. And then, let's not forget the worst one. Mark, don't start with that. I already said power levels mean nothing to me anymore after what they did with 17. We like this character so much, and we hate to show training or strength progression in our story. And we establish that a character gets stronger by fighting stronger characters. So we're going to have a character who is weaker than first form Cell just magically become strong enough to attack Super Saiyan 3 and Blue and Jiren and the rest of the crew by fighting bandits and clowns that Kid Goku could have beaten. So that's just my opinion, Mark. That after what they did with 17, I don't even. These writers can make any character they want as strong as possible. That's why when I did the TN stream, I had people talking about it's too late for TN. He can't become stronger. I was like, you guys would have said the same thing about Frieza in 17 before the Resurrection F and Term of the Power arc. But that's what I'm saying. That like the fans, like they're a difficult group to interact with because they say things that have been disproven by their own franchise. Like Mark, I had a guy who came on here and was like, Dragon Ball doesn't have group fights. I'm like, really? So Zamasu and Goku Black versus Goku, Vegeta, and Trunks didn't happen? Oh, that was only in Super. So Gohan, Krillin, and Vegeta versus Frieza didn't happen. Poir and Upa versus that vampire dude during the Fortune Teller Baba saga didn't happen. Goku and Piccolo versus Raditz didn't happen. Hell, Piccolo, Gohan, Krillin, and Tien versus Nappa didn't happen. It's like, am I the only one that actually watched the show? Jesus. Oh my God. Let me say hello to Envoy. There was a little delay there too. He wrote that probably like a minute ago and it took me a while to respond. I feel so horrible. I might just hurt myself. Yeah, I really do like group fights because they're a respectable way of showing that characters can't keep up without completely embarrassing one of them. And that was actually something that Toriyama relied on pretty heavily early on. Like if it's not a tournament arc, there's a really good chance you're going to get a group fight, or at least a fight where someone else gets involved during it. You know, like we had the Tien versus Goku fight, and you had Shiatsu messing with Goku on the sidelines. So you could count that as a group fight, even though it's more of one-on-one versus, with someone else kind of doing something on the side. Have you played? No. That game is. I've heard some good things about it, but I'm not interested. I'm pretty much done with them. Like after Fighters, that was probably the pinnacle of those games. I know it seems like they're so scared to do. Like I was really on board at first because we hadn't really had an RPG since the Legacy of Goku series, but after just kind of looking at the stuff that was coming out, I was like, yeah, I'm not getting this. I'm good. I just like those open world games, and we don't get that from this franchise that often. Hell, the last time there was a console one like that was what was that game? Sagas, that really bad one that came out in the early 2000s. So I hope I answered your question, Elliot. He's probably like, I'm on sub and he doesn't like Kakarot. I don't dislike it. I just wasn't interested in picking it up. Oh yeah, but speaking of that part about him wanting Taco and not Power, it's kind of funny because I believe it was the first voice actor for Bulma said she was surprised that the Japanese one that she was surprised that her character didn't end up with Yamcha, and a lot of people actually say the only reason that she ended up with Vegeta is because Toriyama barely has any female characters to work with, so he just paired whatever two people together to make Trunks. I believe it too because you don't see them interact at all pretty much up until that point. So I subscribe to that belief. Let's see what else is here. Have you seen any? I've seen all of them on. What kind of sick, demented, twisted question is that? Hey, Envoy, want to play a little game? Yeah, I apologize if you can hear that. But guess which. Actually, no, I'm not going to say that. I was going to say guess which characters appear in the most DBZ movies as proof that I have seen all of them. But I'm just going to leave it at that. Anyways, the answer is the only one that's appeared in all of them is Goku. And then Krillin's in all of them except for Fusion Reborn. And Gohan's in all of them except for Bio Broly. And Vegeta's actually missing from a lot of the early. I think the first one he's in is the second cooler one because they didn't establish him as being one of the good guys yet. So they were still treating him like he was just this arc villain. And villains tend to not appear in the films ever. Well, if we get a new Dragon Ball movie, it'll be under the Super branding mark. Yeah, we were told that we're supposed to be getting another one at some point. Maybe during this decade. Who knows? I'm making that as a joke because there was a thing last year where people kept saying that Super was going to come back, and they would pick a random month, and then that month would come, and there wouldn't even be an announcement, let alone an episode. So every couple of months, somebody would be like, "It's coming back in January. It's coming back in April. It's coming back this summer. It's coming back in October." They gave at least four different. It's me doing my little thumb estimates of time for when this show was going to come back, and it never did. And that's why I had that joke that the manga was gonna like just be around years after the show had ended. That's gonna be the only remnant of Super left, and it has been that way for 2 years. So that's not a far fetched theory. But really, it's insane that people actually just because from what I recall, when we first got Super back over the summer of 2015, that was about 4 months after they announced it was even a thing. So they would have announced something by now if this show was coming this year or next year. They could still theoretically announce it this year, and then we wouldn't get it until next year. Yeah, I'm not holding out hope for any new Dragon Ball animation. That sounds like it looks like we're just going to get games and manga for the next year or so. And people they like to play the games, and they I think what happens a lot of times with American fans is that they don't actually watch the show, so they forget certain stuff that happened because just the way people were answering stuff on that TN stream, it really seems like that. As a kid, I love the BoJack design. Yeah, I like the design. The movies, another matter entirely. It sucks too because that's one of the few films that uses Tien and Yamcha, and they're only really there to just kind of add more drama of like, oh my god, even more characters are getting defeated. Who can stop this onslaught? They do the same thing with those two that they did with them during the Tree of Might, where they're just there to like, you have a villain with a group of minions, and instead of having each one of the different Z fighters take down a minion, you're gonna have the minions defeat the Z fighters so you can make the designated protagonist of the film look cooler by taking out the minions and the big bad. And then Envoy's over there spamming. He loves Bojack's design so much he had to write it 3 times. That'd be funny if every time he does, I read it as many times as he posted. And then somebody's gonna think I have Alzheimer's and can't remember what I just said. I'm like, no, I'm just reading one of my subs wrote continuously. That's all I'm doing. What's crazy is Toriyama has so much lore he can explore with the whole Saiyan story, but they don't choose to go into it. Well, that's why I was really annoyed because I was hoping that they would take the new Angel training. You mean Miras, Elliot? It's funny nobody remembers any of the new characters' names other than maybe Moro. He's probably the maybe second or third most notable character from that arc that's been introduced. It's him, 7-3, which is bootleg hit, as some people would call him, and then the one with the little circles on his Sagan bow or whatever, that the one that got powered up in the last chapter and was smacking down the androids, Gohan and Piccolo at the same time. Yeah, they what's his name? Well, I don't like to mention certain people by name, but let's just say a certain famous YouTube user made a video where they were complaining about how some random galactic patrol agent was so much stronger than Goku. And then it's been explained that he's an angel, and those are obviously, for the most part, stronger than pretty much anyone in any universe. Basically, he looks very incorrect, and his video has not aged well because the story offered an explanation. And because he chose to complain about something that the story had not revealed, his whole little spiel looks more ridiculous. If he had just waited, he would have been able to, again, that's a reason why I'm holding off on not reviewing the arc because I want to have it conclude and then do like a 2-3 hour video about it. I was gonna say before the last 3 months that I was disappointed that it was just the Goku and Vegeta with like a little sprinkle of Piccolo, and then they started doing chapters with the other characters, and I said, "Oh, this is nice, or nicer than what I expected." I think the only chapter between 52, which is the one where Piccolo gets to actually beat up some people, uh, that they haven't used characters that aren't Goku and Vegeta is like 55, which is the one where Miras was last seen, I believe, because that's when Wee's just like, "Hey, your time is up." No, when 56 dropped, everybody got excited for Yamcha. I was like, "Oh my god, they're gonna let him fight again," because they shafted him with the Resurrection F movie. They tried to make him look even like extremely weak with Battle of Gods. So make sure Yamcha doesn't get hurt. It's like, oh, he's finally gonna get something to do. And then they had a couple pages of him, and we are like, oh, I can't wait to see what happens next chapter with his character. And the next chapter came, and he's on there for like maybe 2 pages, getting wrecked. Yeah, Envoy Hit was the only member of Universe 6 that I was remotely interested in seeing more of. They wasted him in a Tournament of Power. Uh, just and like what pisses me off is that I was hoping if they're gonna have more allies for Goku, like I'd rather have seen him with Universe 7 than 17. I know that was a tournament for each universe, but you get the idea that he's a character I'd rather see more of than an android that vanished for 10 years and became stronger out of nowhere. We already have an android. Her name is 18, and we choose to ignore her because, for reasons. Yeah, Hit was so popular, Envoy. They took his design, stuck some horns on it and some circles, and made a new character. I would have enjoyed a well-developed, strong Trunks versus Hit. Yeah, but what's the context for that? Are they fighting in the term of the power against each other, or I don't really understand because I thought when they did the itty bitty arc where it was Hit having seemingly murdered Goku that we were going to get an ultimate Gohan versus Hit fight, and I got all excited. I was like, "Yeah, this is so cool!" And then he came right back the next episode. I just don't understand the point of some of these characters. Like they set them up and then they do nothing with them. Because at least with Yamcha, like you never. got the impression they were trying to turn him into, like something bigger than what he was. He was just a rival of Goku who became an ally that sometimes had a fight during an arc. With Hit, it's he's supposed to be some new rival that Goku's going to clash with again. They get a little bit of a clash during the tournament, and then he gets thrown out when he's fighting Jiren. With Kalba, he's supposed to be Vegeta's new student, and then we don't even see them interact. Like that's what I'm saying. This series is just it's weird. It reminds me a little bit of Oob, where in GT it's established that he was trained under Goku for all those years, and then the best he can do is buy time against Baby and like play second fiddle the whole series. It's just so lame, man. They just waste character after character. Let's see what else is here. I'd say probably in terms of screen time and proper treatment, if I were to do like a top 10 list, the best would be Goku and then Vegeta, and then Gohan and then Piccolo and then Krillin and then Tien, and then maybe Bulma after that. Like just out of characters who've actually gotten screen time to do stuff. They should make a new series just on Hit, similar story like John Wick. Well, he's been around for 1,000 years, and they, for whatever reason, will not go into that. But that's what I'm saying about how they don't want they. It's like they're afraid to do anything with a lot of these characters. Like I don't want to see more of Kale or Khalifa. At least, like I'd rather see more of Hit. I just thought he was the most interesting member of Universe 6. Cool power, good design. But instead, we for the ending of Super, instead of a big rematch between Hit and Goku during the tournament, we got Goku versus random gray, ultra strong, zero personality alien and his group of rip off Power Rangers. And every time I say how like lame Jiren is, I always try to explain that the Pride Troopers outside of him look like they'd be way more interesting characters, especially Topo. But they want to focus on the weird alien with no personality, and then insert some tragic backstory all the way at the end. This guy was like, "Oh, you know, Dragon Ball doesn't have to have villains that are complex." It's like I'm not asking for complexity, but like there's no personality there. It's just a person that talks with a deep voice and appears to be intimidating. Ooh, so impressive. Yeah, that was a really lame final antagonist. They could have picked any other character and it would have been a better ending. They could have had it be Universe 7 versus Universe. First of all, the tournament had way too many universes. What they should have done was probably keep it to maybe 7, 6, 11, which is Jiren's universe, and then another one, and then have instead of 10 people, maybe 12. So that way each universe could theoretically have each character get at least a fight versus 80 plus people and most of them don't even do anything. Because, like I said before, no one believed that all of those universes were going to stay erased. They're not going to design all these new characters just to get rid of them after one season or one arc. So they already spoiled the ending. By the way, there are people who said that Yamcha should have been in that tournament, and I think it would have made sense because he apparently was stronger than Roshi. But at the same time, given how they treated the other humans except for Roshi, I kind of am glad he wasn't there. They did put him there. They did. I, I said during the last stream they have this weird thing where they want to keep like when they discard Yamcha, they stick Roshi in there for some reason. Like they can't be in the same place at the same time. It's like Bruce Wayne and Batman almost with those two. We're gonna get to a point where they start switching Yamcha out with Shiatsu or somebody else that's said to be weaker than them. That's why I said those power ups get really weird. Like they just go from being completely outclassed to some whole other level, and it's not even established in the story. They just randomly make them stronger. I remember the Last Jedi movie reviews where everyone was like, "Oh, this movie is good because it subverted your expectations." It's like by that logic, we should just have the moral arc end with Yamcha making a spirit ball and just smashing it through Moro's chest and beating him. It'll be a great ending because they subverted your expectations. The joke character was able to, save the day. Again, that ending, even if I do want them to use the human characters in a more effective manner and stop coming up with BS excuses for why they can't be as strong as the Saiyans, that would still be a stupid ending because you get the point that the whether it looked cool or whatever still wouldn't factor over if it makes sense or not according to the rules of the universe that they established. Let's see here. And Elliot just stopped typing stuff, and then Envoy went to argue with his ex-wife. I remember the first episode where you used it as part of the soundtrack. Yeah, I mean, I, if it's something I like or I think sounds catchy, I try to use it. Speaking of the first episode, I actually have had thoughts of remaking it because next New Year's will be its fifth anniversary, so I'd like to see how different it would look if I did it today, basically. Not today, as in today, but like after having done more of those. And tomorrow I'm supposed to be putting out a video on the voice actor situation. We're literally never going to get episode 37 because one person won't read 4 lines. Man, sometimes when I'm just sitting there doing this show, like you draw all these pictures out. I really do regret even like bothering. Because you can extol so much effort, and people are just so damn lazy, and you acquiesce to their petulance. You give them time to do stuff, they still let you down. But again, I'll go further into that either tomorrow or on Saturday. I got about 2 or 3 videos on the backlog I haven't put up. I record stuff on Saturday, and then I just kind of have it sit there. And when I do a stream, I'm a lot less likely to put up what I pre-recorded. There was someone who was saying like, why do people like myself still like the humans even if they're weak? It's like, yeah, because the story is not about who's the strongest, as in that doesn't automatically make someone someone's favorite character or someone that a person likes in a series. And a lot of times when you're looking at a show where they basically turned it into the Saiyan show, they fail like Yamcha. Yeah, but when they turn it into the Saiyan show, that does cause you to kind of start rooting for the underdog and getting kind of sick of the status quo of if you're born into the right race, then you have a chance of beating the main villain of an arc. See if whoever was, because I know Toriyama gives the notes, but Toyotaro is the one that fleshes it out. If he was cool or sophisticated with doing this stuff, he would make some kind of, because for whatever reason they don't like to introduce new moves. It's just new forms over and over again. So we're gonna have the Kamehameha for 30 years. We're gonna have Ultra Instinct 2 when we get another new Dragon Ball series. But if he knew what he was doing, he would make a new move for Yamcha that had something to do with baseball, because that's one of the things that was, even that's not in the manga, that's still something Toriyama approved of. And then we could go, oh man, that's so cool. This new move. One of the characters finally got a new move at last. It took 30 years. That's really insane that they just won't make any new moves, new forms, but no new moves. People are just so afraid to change. And I get like not wanting to, give somebody character development or change their personality, but they can't have a new move. Like I literally can't name one move Goku learned after instant transmission. That's like the last thing he ever got. I mean, I guess technically Dragon Fist as well, but you get the point that that's real in a real world setting. That's over 20 years ago. Hey guys, we'll be back. Well, you came in here to announce you're gonna leave. That's a little disappointing. I was getting so excited to reading all of your wonderful messages. Making anime moves should be relatively easy. You got a bunch of other anime and video games to choose from. Well, you would think, but for whatever reason, the only new thing we seem to get is forms. Like you can go through, like just forget Goku and Vegeta, right? You can go through every single character that existed before Super, and you won't see any of them with new moves, just new forms. Super Saiyan God, Super Saiyan God, Super Saiyan Ultra Instinct. No new moves ever. So lame. Let's see here. Man, this is it's really funny that when you do a video or a stream and you have like a billion different things trying to mess it up. You got the rain outside, the noise, like you just can't win. Telemarketer calling. But yeah, if you can hear that, I apologize. I'm very sorry. I didn't mean for it to come to this. Yeah, they refuse to make new moves, but they'll make a new form every season. I even told this one guy, I said the reason oh I did too, Envoy. It's around like the biggest problem with part two for me is the over reliance on Sasuke and the fact that they just I thought going into Shippuden they were going to try to make it about the Konoha 11, and we don't really get that. We get some stuff with Team 7 and then a little bit of Shikamaru, and then just the focus keeps splittering off over and over. Rasengan, that's his Kamehameha. They all learn one move and then use it for the rest of the series. Samurai Jack is the best, hands down. Just had to mention that. Love the show. I haven't seen that show in years, but I remember liking it when I used to watch it. So if that's any consolation, because the moves played into the fighting style. Yeah, that was the my favorite thing about Naruto fights was that you would get an explanation for how a character was able to win, and it was just a much more thought provoking experience to read one of those fights than with Dragon, where it's just punch this person harder. You know, I can't think of any new powers because we have seen it all. Really, man, you get what I'm saying? That if they can come up with new forms, like I never would have thought of Ultra Instinct before. I wouldn't have thought of Super Saiyan turning a different color than gold. So what I'm saying is, if they can come up with new forms, I think they could come up with new moves if they tried. I'm just saying. Speaking of new forms, I remember when we got the first introduction to Ultra Instinct. Remember when it was just his eyes turned a different color, and then uh, got the same hair color and all that. There was a person who was like, "Oh, oh, Envoy, you mean one of the current four main characters of the whole series, of the whole second half of the series?" Man, telling you, after the time skip, they just use him so much. Let me shut up. Okay, new powers, we've seen them all. But I was saying that it was funny that I had a person who, when Ultra Instinct came out, they were like, "Oh, you shouldn't be upset about it because that's not really a new form. It's just kind of like Kaioken because he doesn't really change." And then right after that is when we saw the gray hair when they're like, "Oh, never mind." Hey, wouldn't it have been cool if one of the humans got that? Like, imagine Yamcha when he was getting beat up in the last chapter, just all of a sudden starts moving around all fast and quick. Man, all the fans of the series would be losing their minds and just having their brains melt. And that Toyotaro would be the ultimate troll. He already was when he did the Roshi versus Jiren fight in the manga. It's like Roshi, a character who was leaps and bounds weaker than any threat in the original series, is now magically stronger than any of the like strong enough to fight the strongest person in Universe 11. That's why when people pretend like Yamcha couldn't get a power up, I just kind of roll my eyes because someone who was way weaker than him was able to get one. Really, it's all about just the creators kind of they pick and choose what character they're going to prop up. And I said that's a big reason for why I'm kind of sick of the series. Like, I take it in really small pieces now with a lot of the stuff that comes after Z. So like if there's a new chapter that I think is good, I'll mention I like it. But other than that, you know, everything post the Boo arc, I'm just like whatever. Because the Boo arc is when they got really ridiculous. It's like if Tien can train for 20 years and he's weaker than a 7-year-old Goten who learned Super Saiyan just cause, that's how you know that power scaling, training, none of that matters. It's just whoever the writers think should be strong, they make strong. Man, if I was Tien, I would be so suicidal after that happened. Like, you train all these years, and then some random kid is now magically tougher than you. Hello? Sorry, that was a phone call. I apologize profusely. Like I said, every interruption you could think of, they just all occur at once. It's like an oasis of things just screwing with you. But yeah, Envoy, I didn't know that you liked One Piece. I'm very shocked by that. It's really funny too because I remember before I went and read the whole series, there was a person who said, "Oh yeah, One Piece doesn't abuse its characters like Dragon Ball does," and I was like, "All right, well, I'll take you at your word. I'm also going to check that." And then I read it, and yeah, Elliot, that was Yamcha demanding I respect him. He was telling me that even though he got got destroyed in the last chapter of the manga, he's going to somehow pull off a victory. 57 was just so aggravating because you only I mentioned before that it was like a bunch of fights all happening at once. But we go from getting Yamcha beating up all these minions looking all cool, and then he's getting smashed by this advisor for Moro that we've only seen like one time before. And then instead of them having him and Tien team up to take this guy down, which I was hoping they would do in 58, the one that's supposed to come out in a week. Now we know that because Goku is on Earth, he's probably just going to go over there and one shot the person, and you get the point. Like there's never any tension anymore because you've got these two characters, Goku and Vegeta, who just make everything else seem kind of irrelevant unless it's the main thread. Remember that this arc was supposed to be about Boo, and then he's like not even half of it now. Always says, I had a soft spot for Tien, Solar Flare, and Gohan's Masenko. And then Senko said, I feel like Tien and Yamcha should have their own movie. Then after the movie, they can bring them to the super world. I would rather Yamcha have his own film where he's a baseball player by day and a crime fighter by night. And then all the like supervillains he fights are either weaker than him or just like slightly above his level. And every time he tries to get one of the other Z fighters to help him, they're always busy. He has Gohan to help him. Oh, I'm studying. He has Vegeta to help him. He's in the gravity chamber. He has Goku to help him. He's on another planet. You see here. Plus, you have the dials that can wish you back. Oh, plus you have the balls that can wish you back. Yeah, but you know they got on my nerves with the Super Dragon Balls. That was a really stupid idea because the whole thing about the Dragon Balls is that unless you have the radar, they just get scattered everywhere. Oh, Envoy, if they were smart, they would have had him go to Future Trunks' timeline the uh, to get with the Bulma from that one, that single. I'm sure she wouldn't have minded. It's probably really lonely. Stranded in that apocalyptic hellhole. Yeah, they were really not bright for doing that one. Well, I told you that like he's actually the only like of the male Z fighters that aren't Piccolo. He's the only one that doesn't have a love interest because even Tien has launched, and the only reason they apparently didn't hook up is because Toriyama allegedly forgot she existed. I don't know how the hell that happens, but I'm gonna take him at his word. Yeah, Yamcha's the only one that got his love interest stolen, and then they just never introduced anybody else. What's funny, Elliot? I've been saying a lot of comedic stuff. No, Toriyama is such a. I mean, if you look at like a lot of the little things throughout the series, you can tell he just changed his mind left and right. Yeah, he's non-binary. Well, like the Namekians they don't even have any chicks, and they just reproduce with the eggs, and we know that he can do it because his dad could do it, so he could just spout an egg and have a kid if he wanted to. If only men in real life could do that, then we wouldn't have to put up all these stupid chicks. Just like, oh, I want a son. Hey, Yamcha needs to wish for that ability. And that'd be funny if they do a movie where he hooks up with that green chick that was with Broly, and that's how Broly like becomes an actual villain. It's like you stole my woman. There was actually a guy that was doing a review of. It was before the Broly movie came out, and he was like, "I like the original Broly before they gave him purple pants and a girlfriend." I just started to just laughing because they have this thing where like all the villains have to be sympathetic, which by itself isn't an issue, but like when you make characters that are originally evil and then you create a way for them to not be as evil anymore, it kind of messes with stuff a little bit. Like I'm not going to be able to get that intense Goku versus or just Broly versus whoever fight anymore because he's not really a bad guy. So it's like That might work for one movie where he's the misunderstood brute, but it's not going to work for supposedly a character you want to keep alive. Or just yeah, but I think Cell got that from Piccolo cells. Like his reproduction was just a variant of that, of the egg laying. That wasn't even his butt. That was his tail. We opened it up and just there they came. By the way, I got into a bit of an argument with someone a couple of years ago because I said that I'd like to see Cell come back, and they're like, "Who's gonna bring back Cell?" Envoy, I didn't even say that Broly, the new one, was bad. You get out of here with that. Anyways, personally, I didn't care one way or the other for the original Broly. Like I didn't care for Broly. I was just tired of Saiyans. So I wasn't against his new characterization or anything. I just like if you're gonna bring back a villain, I'd like Cooler, just somebody else, man. But anyways, uh, I was actually getting into an argument with this person because I said they should bring back Cell, and the way they could do it is they could have it to where, because we know that he found out he could lay Cell Juniors prior to that tournament. They could retcon it and say that he laid a Cell Junior somewhere and had it revert to like a larval state, and it's just been laying dormant for all these years, waiting for the opportunity to grab the Dragon Balls and wish back its father. It would be very simple. And you had Toriyama saying that he hates drawing the spots on Cell. Give him a new design without the spots then. Well, with Cooler, they wouldn't try to make him a good guy or like create any way for him to keep like what they should do with these villains is instead of killing them off toward the end of the film, they can have them get blasted somewhere where they think they've beaten them or that they've destroyed them when they're being cloaked somewhere so they can heal and swear revenge or something like that. If you're going to have an ongoing franchise, that is. Cooler was cool. Janemba was cool. There's a whole bunch of different villains that I think were really good that they don't get to prop up because they want to use Saiyans. Hell, I remember that for the Super 17 arc, I wanted because I do rag on GT sometimes because I'm not a fan of it, but the idea of two 17s fusing together, I thought would have been cool if because Piccolo was in that arc just a little bit. When he went to hell to get Goku, he's merged with his dad, and then he became as strong, like the same power level of Super 17. So it would have been two Piccolos versus two 17s. And then you could have it explained as to how he got this power up by saying that Piccolo Daimao was training and fighting all these different strong people that were coming into hell over the last 10 or 20 years. Some sort of device to help draw in anime spots or complicated designs. I think there is because I've seen people who they'll do like some shirt or something, right? It's got a little thing on it. They'll draw the shirt, but then they'll put the image, what do you call it, see through, and then they'll put that on top of it. They'll overlay it. So I think there is people are just too damn lazy. And again, like have somebody else put the damn spots on there. Like these people get paid to do that. It's really not hard. They're just being lazy. It's the same reason why Yamcha can't be anything but a joke character because they'd rather be lazy. Hell, I was actually saying that I'm glad that he at least got the baseball episode because it's like you let Tien be part of the big old tournament and all he does is get destroyed for like he has the worst performance out of anybody in that arc, and at least in the show, but in the manga too, because he gets knocked out to make Frost look cooler. A new design without the spots. They can make it bright green. They can make it gold. It's not hard to do that. More intimidating. The first cell form gave me nightmares. That thing was like he's got this beak mouth, and then these really like black predator eyes with the pink outline, and then this tail just stabs you with it. He looked like a actual monster. That's probably of any of the villains that were from the original manga, this the by far the most intimidating. Like people were talking about, oh, Super Boo was no, he wasn't. Just a little pink man with muscles. That's it. First form self freaked me out. It's the only villain that whole series where I was freaked out over. And I don't usually, and I didn't ever really get intimidated by cartoon design. So that was one of that. That's like an accomplishment, basically. He was the creepiest looking thing out of that whole manga. Yeah, Perfect Cell would be I thought would make a much smarter choice for the Tournament of Power because we know that he trains because he inherited that trait of wanting to get stronger and fight stronger opponents from Goku, and I guess technically Vegeta as well. But you get the point that that was in his character to do something like that. Yeah, that roster for that tournament should have been. I probably would keep Frieza out of it and put Boo in there like they apparently originally intended, and then Yamcha instead of 17. Because again, I don't even dislike that character. I just hate that they gave him this big, huge power up, and I have people who are still telling me the humans can't do anything. It's over for the humans. But then they want to tell me about how impressed they were by Seven. It's like, yeah, because someone wrote it to be that way. And they didn't even have to offer an explanation. You have a lot of fans that just eat up whatever the franchise gives them. Like when Super was really bad, when they had the movie retellings, I wasn't watching that. So I'm not giving these people my a view. I'm just saying if the fans in large enough numbers are like, we're not going to put up with this. That's when they start switching on you. Let me see what else is here. Am I missing something? Oh yes, Senko said 17 was cooler than cool. It's not even about being cool. It's just what makes the most sense based off of the story you're trying to tell. Like I said, if they had done a little arc of 17 training with Beerus, and then they show him progressively getting stronger, where Beerus has like his hands behind his back at the start, and then you see him actually having to stop him with it, that would at least alleviate the criticism I'm giving, which is that his power up comes out of nowhere because they would actually explain it for you. We don't get that in this series. They just come up with nonsense. But yeah, I think Yamcha's a fun character. Um, I really like that they used him for the second to last chapter. I didn't like how they used him for the last one. We got another one coming up in a week, and I am not optimistic about what's going to happen in there because they brought Goku to Earth, and he's probably going to steal the spotlight like he always does. Um, but maybe they might surprise me. I don't know. So thank you for watching. I got this damn rain coming down. I hope you enjoyed this despite all the little noises and strange occurrences that happened here. And I'll do another one on Saturday, a live show rather. So have a good day.